Hi, welcome to this video. We're going to develop now exercises 1 to 5 of chapter 33, aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Remember, this is a book of Gregory Mankiw, Principles of Economics. So let's go for it. So the first question said, suppose the economy is in a long-run equilibrium. Draw a diagram to illustrate the state of the economy. Be sure to show aggregate demand, short-run aggregate supply, and long-run aggregate supply. So first question of the first part, we're going to develop or we're going to depict the scheme, the natural scheme when the economy is in the long-run equilibrium. So we have in the y-axis, we have the price level, and in the x-axis we have the quantity produced, or the quantity of output. So then here we have the demand, which is the aggregate demand, and here we have the aggregate supply. Those curves are denoted or they explain in the short run. Why we know that, or how do we know that this is in the short run? Because we have an upward slope and downward slope. So this is the main situation when we have in the short run the curves. So here we have the equilibrium price level, here we have the equilibrium output, the quantity, so this should be like the real GDP, and the price level should be like the deflator or the CPI, which stands for Consumer Price Index. And here we have a vertical axis, we have the long run aggregate supply. So this is the normal scheme that we face every time when we talk about long run equilibrium. B. Now suppose that a stock market crash causes aggregate demand to fall. Use your diagram to show what happens to output and the price level in the short run, what happens to unemployment rate. So here we have again the same scheme, so we started from the same part. So now when we have an aggregate demand that it falls, so here naturally it shifts to the left. How much? Well, it depends how big is this crash. So we're going to make like a standard deviation, shift to the left. So as a consequence, we have here lower prices and lower quantity produced. So basically what's happening here, so enterprises need to adjust lower prices. So because the profit is affected, so because there is a positive relationship with the supply and the prices. When the prices are higher, producers, they have more incentives to produce more. Otherwise, when the prices are lower, naturally they need to fit that situation and they need to offer less. So then because the profit is affected. When now you are producing less, you need less labor. So some workers are laid off, adjusted for this situation. So then as a consequence, we have unemployment that it raises. C. Use the sticky wedge theory of aggregate supply to explain what will happen to output and the price level in the long run, assuming no change in policy. What role does the expected price level play in this adjustment? Be sure to illustrate your analysis in a graph. So then again we have here the situation that we have before, this shift to the left. So then after a time, but naturally the enterprise adjusts wages as well. So then with the time, what happened with the sticky wedge theory? As we know, the wages, they are fixed for kind of medium run, so medium term. So you cannot adjust it from one day to day. So then when now the expected prices are in some part like lower, then the firms, they can start to hire more workers because the wages are lower. So the firms, they have incentives to hire more workers. So then as a consequence, the aggregate supply in the short run can shift to the right. As a consequence, we have a level from price 0 to price 2. So then this should be the situation of the sticky wedge theory. In the short run, it's not possible to move the wedges, but in the medium run, it's possible to make any change or some change to adjust that situation and take advantage from the firms. Second, explain whether each of the following events will increase, decrease, or have no effect on long-run aggregate supply. A. The United States experience a wave of immigration. So then, this is related with labor. So then, this should affect the factors of production. Take into account that the factors of production are split in labor, capital, and natural resources. So then labor is affected, so then labor increases, so it moves the aggregate supply to the right. B. Congress raises the minimum wage for 15 per hour. So then this is just a change in wage, but no change specific in labor, capital, natural resources. So no effect in the long run aggregate supply. C. Intel invents a new and more powerful computer chip. Well, this is an increase in technological knowledge. It shifts to the right because it's better. D. A severe hurricane damages factories along the East Coast, so it affects the natural resources, plants, equipment, capital is destroyed. So then the long run aggregate supply shift to is not right, actually shift to the left, Okay. Third, suppose an economy is in long run equilibrium. Use the model of aggregate and demand and aggregate supply to illustrate initial equilibrium called in point A. Be sure to include both short run and long run aggregate supply. Well, it's exactly the same as the first A, no difference. Okay. B. The central bank raises the money supply by 5%. Use your diagram to show what happens to output in the price level as the economy moves from the initial to the new short-run equilibrium. Call it point B. So then, with this difference or this increase in the money supply, well, basically what we have here is that the aggregate supply move to the right. Well, this is a common expansionist policy from the central bank to try to incentive people to consume more. If you are raising money or you're raising money supply, you're making people buy more, consume more, even invest more. Remember, central bank buys government bonds from the market. So it what we said in economics, inject liquidity to the market. Once the money is injected to the market, so all different institutions and even people that they had before those assets, now instead of assets, they have money. What are you going to do with money? So maybe you can consume, you can invest. It means buy equipment, capital in general, or you can even buy different goods, different goods. So then basically is what we say. This one is an increase in the aggregate demand. So then the AD shift to the right. As a consequence, we have an increase in the output, but as well in the level of prices. Then C, now show the new long-run equilibrium, call it point C. What causes the economy to move from point B to C? So then, if we have the new long-run equilibrium, should be something provided by this. Why? Well, in the point B, the firms respond to sell more for the increase in prices. So you have higher prices in the economy, the producers, they have more incentive to put more goods and services into the market. So then it's important to to denote here that the price level is higher than expected. So then, in the long run, the wages will adjust to the new level of prices because the contract will end in 1 year, but then the workers, they will say, okay, come on, now the prices they're higher, you're still paying me exactly the same wage, so we can bargain a higher salary. So then, because of the wages is higher, then companies will hire less workers. So then, for this reason, the aggregate supply shift to the left. So then, as a consequence, you can denote here just a higher level of prices. So then, according to the sticky wage theory of aggregate supply, how do nominal wages at a point A compare to nominal wages at a point B? How do nominal wages at point A compare to nominal wages at point C? So then, basic here, what we have is like in this situation, the point B, the nominal wages, they do not react because we are talking now in the short run. So remember, because of the sticky wage theory, it doesn't move the wages. So because of the wages, they don't change. So it's exactly the same value of point A to point B. If we move to point C, the nominal wages adjust now to the prices. So naturally, they're higher. When we say about this is basically about the nominal wages compare the A and C part. According to the sticky wage theory of aggregate supply, how do real wages? So exactly the same question, but based on real wages. Well, basically in real wages, the B part, the real wages are lower compared with A because you're still receiving exactly the same quantity of money. However, you cannot pay the same, or you cannot purchase exactly the same goods. So definitely the real wages are lower. But in C, the real wages are exactly equal from A to C. Just as we can see here, this increase of the money supply just increase the real GDP in the short run, but because of the adjustment of the aggregate supply, we return to the original Y0. Okay, F. Judging by the impact of the money supply on nominal and real wages in this analysis, consistent with the proposition that money has real effects in the short run but is neutral in the long run. Well, basically yes. The idea is like in the short run the quantities increased, but in the long run the quantities remain the same. Just inflation was provided in this economy. 4. In 1939, with the US economy not yet fully recovered from the Great Depression, President Roosevelt proclaimed the Thanksgiving would fall a week earlier than usual so that the shopping period before Christmas should be longer. Explain the President Roosevelt might have trying to achieve using the model of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Well, basically what was trying to do in some way was like the aggregate demand was still like wounded because of the situation of the Great Depression. So it was still lower to the long run equilibrium. So with an increase in consumption, he was trying to push to the right. So it was still the situation of the AD prime was still caused because of the 1929. So with the Roosevelt measure or Roosevelt's policy, it was trying to shift this AD curve to the right. This was the basic idea. 5. Explain why the following statements are false. A. The aggregate demand curve slopes downward because it is the horizontal sum of the demand curves for individual goods. Well, the price level and consumption, well, actually there are different causes why the demand curve slopes downward. This is because basically different causes. The first one is because of the wealth effect. So we know that the nominal of $1 is fixed, and $1 actually always is $1. but then when you have a higher prices, you cannot consume the same, so you have a wealth effect. So this is a negative situation. Other that cause why the demand curve slopes downward is the price level and investment, because automatically this is what we call the interest rate effect. When we have higher lower prices, for example, then you have more money available. When you have more money available, you go and you deposit that money in your bank. But then with this one, at the end of the day, with these lower prices, so basically the rate effect at this time will be actually lower, right? So it's not going to be more people, this is going to be less attractive because we have more money in the market. So then the interest rate will fall. So then as a consequence, more people will consume more because they don't have more incentives to deposit the money in the economy, and actually more people will even borrow money to invest or to consume. The price level and net exports, so exchange rate effect, exactly the same. When we have here this situation of the price which is lower, actually you are going to provide the situation that the exports will increase and the import will decrease, making the net exports even higher. B, the long run aggregate supply curve is vertical because economic forces do not affect long run aggregate supply. Well, actually the prices do not affect long run supplies, what we call about the neutrality of money and the classical dichotomy. We just say that capital, stock, natural resources or labor changes can provide a different movement of the long run aggregate supply, not because of the prices. And then C, if firms adjusted their prices every day, then the short run aggregate supply curve will be horizontal. Well, actually this is not just because of the price that the short run aggregate supply is upward slope. Actually there is other situation of the sticky wage theory, that the wages cannot change from one day to day. It's like with a midterm, it's not like in the short run that they can be replaced. Other that we talked during the chapter was the misperception theory. Whenever the economy enters a recession, its long run aggregate supply curve shifts to the left. Well, actually recession is when we face lower production and lower prices, and this is provided usually by a contraction of the demand, aggregate demand. So AD can be, so the aggregate demand can return to the original place with the adequate policy. And aggregate supply can vary to reach the original output. Well, I guess that's all for this video. I hope it has helped. As usual, please comment if you have some other ways to solve these exercises. Share with your colleagues, with your peers, if you have like something relevant. That's it. I hope it has been okay for you, and see you naturally next video. Bye bye.